It is a joy to be with you this afternoon. Thank you, David, for inviting me, and thank you each for welcoming me. And I'm headed your direction, Jesse, headed back to the East Coast. I am currently here in the Sierra Nevada foothills with Sierra Center for Spiritual Living and have just been selected as the new senior minister at Columbia Center for Spiritual Living in Columbia, Maryland. So, working out the details of all of that. Uh, Talk about curiosity and living in the mystery. I'm right there with each of us. And the reality of it is, we're there all the time anyway. It's quite impossible to live anywhere but the mystery. And we have this amazing organ that lives between our ears called a brain that convinces us that there is some certainty that exists. And what I have become really aware of over the years of studying spiritual principle and how we in New Thought embrace the divine is that my brain only recognizes the past. It is the hard drive of this computer that I call me, and it is programmed systemically, generationally, with past information. And so when I really dive into the newness of the mystery, my brain has issues with that because it has no information to deal with. Now, I want to be really clear. The brain is a beautiful organ and it has an amazing job to keep us in this human experience, to keep us grounded in this human body, and to help us navigate this idea of safety in the human realm. And that rubs against infinite creative expression in the spiritual realm. And so we're constantly navigating this dance of the both and. And what I've become aware of is when David asked me for a blurb about my talk, I was coming up empty. And so I just went into meditation and said what I often say is that infinite intelligence within me knows everything. And so what does it know about this talk and how it is to be conceptualized and contextualized? And what came was this. The slippery slope of certainty is perhaps our greatest limitation, fixing our thought in the rightness of a factual past. Each time we dare to imagine an indefinable newness, we move into an expanded experience of our infinite divinity. There can be no fixed anything in a consistently unfolding creative infinity. Creation, by definition, is constantly forward, and the brain is constantly searching files from the past to make sense of the moment. I love what Ernest Holmes says in The Science of Mind on page 404, paragraph 3. Fear arises from the mental attitude which limits the possibilities and the willingness of spirit to give us the good we so greatly desire. Now, most of us will focus in on the word fear, but I think what's more important is what he says after that the fear arises from that mental attitude which limits the possibility. Possibility is never limited except by our own thoughts. And the way this human mechanism works is our thoughts create our feelings create our urges, and our urges lead to our actions. Our actions repeated create our habits repeated create this thing we call our life. And when we understand the infinite, eternal nature of our being, we can begin to grasp that every thought that has ever been thunk in the history of thinking is alive in the collective consciousness that we all share. Now, for me, that sets me free from having to figure out where the thought came from. This whole thing of curiosity, I spoke about this morning. I think we get stuck in the wrong question when things happen, like when a balloon floats by from China with a mechanism on board that is the size of 3 buses doing surveillance. It's easy for our thoughts to go running down multiple rabbit holes about what all that means, what's wrong with them, what's wrong with this situation, and what if we simply leaned into the curiosity of how is God expressing in this? How is the infinite expressing in this? What is there for me to see and know about divinity from my divinity in the activity of this? How might we experience life differently? How might we experience one another differently? And more importantly, how might we experience ourselves differently? Brene Brown writes in her book, The Gifts of Imperfection, faith is a place of mystery where we find the courage to believe in what we cannot see and the strength to let go of our fear of uncertainty. I've done a lot of work around this whole topic of fear. And what I have found is that what most of us call fear has nothing to do with fear at all. It has more to do with thoughts that we think scare us. That true fear is actually a beautiful system that has been installed by creation in every sentient being. Every living thing that has the ability to scurry away from danger in the physical realm does so. And I have never observed rabbits chastising one another in nature for running from something that scares them. I've never encountered a herd of deer and one of them gets startled and the rest of them chastise that deer for being startled. And yet, humanity constantly vilifies and misinterprets our divine alert system that quite literally operates independent of thought. And so if we're afraid based on what we're thinking, that's actually not real fear. It is thought produced scaring ourselves out of our own divinity because the brain just simply doesn't have the capacity to understand newness until it becomes an experience, and then it has a file for it. And it's just how our humanness works. When we're looking at this thing of curiosity, what came up for me was a couple of things. Number one, motive. Motive being literally meaning to move. And understanding that our thoughts move this indefinable creative something into being the manifestation of our thought. When I think about manifestation, and I understand that the word manifestation literally means to reveal, then everything that is manifest in my life is a revelation of a thought that is alive in me, whether I know that thought is in there or not. And that's an important part of motive, because motive in the dictionary is literally defined as a reason for doing something, especially one that is hidden or not obvious, causing or being the reason for something. Now, as I understand metaphysics, that's a pretty metaphysical definition of motive. And what Holmes talked about, thoughts become things, thoughts become experience, thoughts move the infinite into experience, into our lives. It took me, this is the thought process of this minister. So then, okay, Revelation, and I went right to the Bible, and Revelation chapter 3, verse 20, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hear my voice and open the door, I will come in and will sup with them and they with me. In this context of curiosity, that is such a beautiful invitation and promise that if we will simply open the door, because the infinite is always knocking, it's always that's the curiosity that is within us. And if we will just simply open the door, we become more of what we came here to be. We become that newness, which later on in Revelations is talked about in 21:5, where it says, behold, I make all things new. Part of this journey of metaphysics for me has been redefining and re-embracing the beautiful Bible without all the guilt, shame, and blame, to read it from the perspective and the time of when it was written before it was distorted. And it's a beautiful, beautiful work. Ultimately, what came to me in preparing this talk was the realization that we are, each of us, we are the infinite's curiosity of itself in human form. That it needs us in order to expand itself. It's curious about what it can imagine, and so it creates, it individualizes itself in exquisite multiplicity, and then leaves us alone to use all of it to be curious about what more there can be. And that is literally how the infinite expands its experience of itself, is through the consciousness of each of us, which is itself. And so I want to leave you with that you are unequivocally, you are the divine's curiosity of its self. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Rafe. I'm going to spotlight Jesse Powers for. There you go, Jesse.
Ooh. That was really good, Reverend Rafe. Thank you. I was blessed to have received a description of your talk and that quote from you, essentially about the how certainty is it's like our biggest limitation. And I wrote this song last night, inspired by that little blurb I got from David. So lately, my favorite thing to say is, what do I know anyway? Breathe in, breathe out, and let it go. Ooh. And settle into the unknown. This is the place where my heart runs free, giving it up to the love in me. Every wall you break, every boundary, I feel it a little bit more. Your love is the only thing that'll ever be sure. One step as steady as I can. When faith becomes the only plan. Be brave, be still, my beating heart. There is a safety in the dark. And all I know is that you do. So take my hand and lead me through. This is the place where my heart runs free, giving it up to the love in me. Every wall you break, every boundary, I feel it a little bit more. Your love is the only thing that'll ever be sure. Ooh, 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 ooh. Your love is sure. Your love is sure. Your love is sure. Your love. This is the place where my heart runs free, giving it up to the love in me. Every wall you break, every boundary, I feel it a little bit more. Your love is the only thing that'll ever be sure.
Jesse, you really just wrote that?
I did last night.
It's just such a blessing. Thank you so much for creating that. So let's just go within. This is our time of community prayer. So I just ask that we just sit here in reverence and openness to the message that began with the meditation and continued through the music. And that whatever is weighing on our hearts that is in need of prayer, whether it's someone that we know, whether it's ourselves, whether it's a situation in the world, that we open ourselves up to this state of not having to be certain of the why, but being curious about it. And perhaps, like Jesse said, just being certain of the love. And as Reverend Rafe said, just being certain of the faith that we have in the face of this great mystery. So I'm just letting whatever is in need of prayer just be a part of this certainty of love right now, letting go of fear, the need to control, letting go of the past, letting go of assumptions, and just opening to that beautiful mystery and that love. And so it is. Jesse, you're going to sing one closing song for us.
Yep, I got you. We're going to go out into the world after this and practice letting go a little more, getting comfortable with that inevitable unknown space that we're always walking in. Sometimes it feels like my heart is stuck in a revolving door. It can get me down so much, I don't even want to mess with it anymore. Oh, that too familiar feeling, oh, I know it well, but I don't let it get too far. No, I'm too good at staying cool now. Yes, I am learning the art, and I'm getting good at letting go. Yeah, I'm getting good at giving it over, cause I know it ain't in my hands. Oh, I'm getting good at letting go. Yeah, getting good at giving it over, cause I know, though I do not understand, that God's always got something better planned. When the shadow comes creeping in like a thief from my past, I turn on the light by remembering only my soul knows my path. And I'm getting good at letting go, yeah, getting good at giving it over, cause I know it ain't in my hands. I'm getting good at letting go, yeah, getting good at giving it over, cause I know, though I do not understand, oh, God's always got something better planned, and I am unburdened. Yes, I am free when I believe. Hey, if I just keep trusting, if I keep the faith, I know I'll see. When I let go, and I know when I let go, and I know that God's always God. Oh, God's always God. Oh, God's always got something better planned. Ooh. Yeah, 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 yeah. The universe has always got my back. I'm just gonna relax, sit back, watch this stuff go by, and enjoy my life, and take action when I'm led to. Oh, yeah. God has always got something better planned. Thank you.